Have you ever felt like your body changed the rules of the game after you turned 50? It's a frustrating feeling. That walk that used to solve everything now seems to have no effect on the scale. And that little bit of belly fat that was never there before now seems to have arrived to stay, no matter how much you try to eat less or exercise. It feels like overnight your metabolism decided to ignore your efforts and create a kind of permanent storage right there in the center of your body. The truth that nobody tells you is that after 50, your abdominal metabolism is not just slower. It's operating in a completely different mode. Your body has changed its priority for where it stores energy, which is why the traditional diets that worked at age 30 now fail miserably. Today, I'm going to explain exactly why your body has decided that the belly is the best place to store fat at this stage of life, and more importantly, how you can reprogram your system to start burning that energy efficiently again. It's time to stop fighting the mirror with the wrong tools and start understanding your new biology. Hello, I'm Dr. Harrison Blake. I'm a medical specialist, and in 15 years of clinical practice, I have helped thousands of people regain their shape once they understood that the body, after maturity, requires strategy, not just deprivation. If you want to understand how your metabolism works and how to eliminate this fat once and for all, you're in the right place. Go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below. I want to reset my metabolism. I make a point of following your questions. Many people come into my office saying, "Doctor, I didn't gain weight all over my body. It feels like my arms and legs are even thinner, but everything I eat goes straight to my belly." In 15 years of medicine, I explained that this is not a coincidence. It's a direct biological response to the hormonal decline that happens after age 50. For women, menopause brings a drastic reduction in estrogen. For men, andropause reduces testosterone. What few people know is that these sex hormones are the great conductors of fat distribution. When they leave the stage, the body enters survival mode and decides to change the address of its energy storage. Why the belly? There is an evolutionary reason for that. Abdominal fat is metabolically more active and is closer to the liver, which means the body can access it more quickly in a supposed emergency. In addition, fat tissue has the ability to convert other hormones into a weak form of estrogen. So when your ovaries or testicles stop producing hormones at the levels they once did, your body tries to compensate for this shortage by creating a secondary factory of hormones. And where is that factory located? Exactly in the fat around your belly. Your body is literally storing fat there in an attempt to maintain some minimal hormonal balance. I call it a safety reserve during times of crisis. The problem is that this process is fueled by stress. After 50, we become much more sensitive to cortisol, the stress hormone. Cortisol has an almost magnetic affinity for fat cells in the abdominal region. When you're stressed, whether because of work problems, lack of sleep, or family concerns, cortisol signals your liver to release sugar into bloodstream, and shortly afterward, insulin pushes that sugar directly into the fat cells in your belly. It becomes a vicious cycle. Fewer sex hormones and more stress hormones inevitably lead to a larger abdomen. In addition, with the drop in testosterone and estrogen, we lose the natural protection we once had against fat accumulating between the organs. Before, fat tended to be distributed subcutaneously, the type that sits just under the skin. Now it tends to become deeper. Your body is trying to protect your core, but ends up creating silent inflammation. Understanding this change of address is the first step to stop blaming yourself. You are not undisciplined with your diet. Your body is simply following a new biological program that prioritizes central storage. Our challenge is not just to eat less, but to signal to the brain that it no longer needs this emergency factory around your waist. Very often, a patient comes into the office and pinches that little roll around their waist, complaining that their pants no longer close. But as a doctor, what worries me is not what you can pinch. There's a vital difference between subcutaneous fat and visceral fat, especially after age 50. Subcutaneous fat is the type that sits just below the skin. It's soft, you can grab it with your fingers, and although it may be aesthetically undesirable, it is metabolically more inert, meaning it doesn't cause as much immediate damage to your health. The real problem of maturity is visceral fat. Visceral fat is the type hidden deep inside your abdomen. It's not under the skin, It's behind the abdominal wall, wrapping around your liver, your kidneys, your pancreas, and even your heart. It's the fat that gives the belly that bloated and rigid appearance, the well-known hard belly. In 15 years of clinical practice, I explain to my patients that visceral fat is not just a passive energy reserve. In fact, it behaves like an independent and highly inflammatory endocrine organ. It releases substances into your bloodstream called pro-inflammatory cytokines that keep your body in a constant state of alert and inflammation. Imagine that you have a small bonfire burning inside your belly 24 hours a day. This chronic inflammation generated by visceral fat rusts your arteries and overloads your liver. Because this fat is very close to the portal vein, which drains blood directly to the liver, it releases free fatty acids that force the liver to produce more glucose and more bad cholesterol. That's why, after 50, an increase in abdominal circumference is so closely linked to the development of type 2 diabetes and hypertension. You're not just gaining weight. You're creating a chemical reactor that alters your entire metabolism. Many men and women at this stage notice that their belly has changed texture. It feels firmer and more projected forward. This is a classic sign that your body has stopped storing energy in the periphery and has started to crowd your internal organs. And here is the danger you cannot see. You might even have a body weight that is considered normal on the scale, but if your waist circumference is high, you may be what we call a skinny fat person with a high cardiovascular risk. Visceral fat is the main factor that locks fat burning because it sends signals to the brain that the body is in danger, which makes you feel hungrier and less willing to move. My role here is to warn you that reducing this belly is not a matter of vanity for next summer. It's a matter of reducing inflammation in your body. When we eliminate visceral fat, your liver can breathe again, your pancreas works with less effort, and your blood pressure tends to normalize. The first step to win this battle is to stop looking only at the number on the scale and start measuring your waist. If your measuring tape is going up, inflammation is going up too. But the good news is that visceral fat, because it is so metabolically active, is the first to disappear when we use the right strategy. One of the biggest myths I try to break in my office every day is the idea that losing belly fat after 50 is simply a matter of eating less and exercising more. If it were that simple, you wouldn't be here listening to me right now. In 15 years of medicine, I have seen that the real villain is not calories themselves, but a hormone called insulin. Think of insulin as the key that opens the door of your cells so sugar can enter and produce energy. The problem is that after decades of diet rich in refined carbohydrates and constant stress, your body begins to develop what we call insulin resistance. It's as if the lock on the cell door has become jammed. When the lock jams, your pancreas has to produce larger and larger amount of insulin to try to push that sugar inside. And here is a secret nobody tells you. Insulin is the most powerful storage hormone in the body. As long as your insulin levels are high in the bloodstream, it is biochemically impossible to burn fat. High insulin acts like a chemical padlock on the fat in your belly. It signals the body with the following message. We have plenty of energy in the blood, so store everything that comes in and don't let anything from reserve come out. That's why you might be eating only a lettuce leaf. But if your insulin is high because of a cookie or a healthy juice every 3 hours, your belly will not shrink. Eating every 3 hours is often the worst strategic mistake for someone over 50. Every time you snack, you tap your pancreas to release insulin. This keeps your body in a constant storage state. In maturity, your body no longer has the metabolic flexibility of youth. It needs longer period without food so insulin levels can drop enough for another hormone, glucagon, to step in and rescue the stored fat and turn into fuel without lowering insulin. You're trying to remove water from a ship with a bucket that has a hole in it while the hose is still running. Furthermore, insulin resistance after age 50 creates a cycle of constant hunger. Because sugar cannot efficiently enter the cells anymore, your cells are essentially starving even if you just ate. Your brain interprets this as an energy shortage and triggers hunger signals, especially for sweets and refined carbohydrates. You feel tired, unfocused, and you develop an uncontrollable urge to snack at night. It's a biological trap. You store fat in your belly, but the rest of your body feels malnourished. To unlock this padlock, we don't need starvation. We need nutritional intelligence. We need to drastically reduce the glycemic load of meals and give the body time to rest. When you reduce meal frequency and focus on foods that do not spike insulin as much, you finally give your body permission to access visceral fat. It's like finally finding the correct key for that jam lock. In the 15 years I've worked as a physician, I've seen remarkable results when patients stop focusing on calories and start focusing on hormonal control. If you want your belly to respond, you must first tame your insulin. Without that, you're simply fighting your own physiology, and that is a battle the body always wins. Have you ever noticed that years ago you could eat a big plate of pasta, and the next day it seemed like your body had already handled it? But today, everything feels twice as heavy? That happens because after age 50, your mitochondria, the tiny power plants inside your cells, start to decline in number and efficiency. They're the engines that burn fuel, fat, and glucose to keep you alive and active. If the engine is weak, the fuel accumulates and ends up being stored as abdominal fat. But what causes this engine to fail? The main reason is sarcopenia, the progressive loss of muscle mass. Muscle is the tissue that consumes the most energy in your body, even when you're sitting still watching this video. Think of muscle as the engine displacement of your metabolism. At 20 years old, you were like a V8 engine burning energy even while sleeping. At 50, if you haven't been careful, your engine may have turned into a small four-cylinder. With less muscle, your resting metabolism drops dramatically. That explains why you burn fewer calories today than before, even if you do the same activities. Here is the trap. Most people try to solve this by doing more aerobic exercise, like hours of walking. Walking is excellent for the heart, but it is not the best medicine for belly fat after 50. To reactivate your mitochondria, you need strength training. When you lift weights or perform resistance exercises, you signal your body that it needs more energy power plants to handle the load. This creates new mitochondria and preserves the muscle mass that keeps your metabolism running faster. In 15 years of clinical practice, I have seen that the best fat burner does not come in capsules. It is the muscle you build in the gym or at home. Muscle acts like a metabolic sponge, absorbing excess sugar from the bloodstream and preventing it from turning into visceral fat. In addition, healthy mitochondria can perform fat oxidation, which is a technical term for burning fat. Without efficient mitochondria, your body tries to burn fat, but cannot complete the process, generating metabolic waste that inflames your belly even further. Another crucial point is that muscle is also an endocrine organ that produces substances called myokines. These are health messengers that travel through your bloodstream and give orders to your body to burn the fat around your organs. Notice the reversal. Visceral fat sends messages of inflammation and disease. Muscle sends messages of burning and health. After age 50, your priority should not simply be to lose weight, but to change the composition of your engine. If you focus only on losing weight on the scale and ignore your muscles, you end up losing the little engine you still have. Later, this makes it even easier to regain belly fat. The dreaded yo-yo effect. To defeat abdominal fat once and for all, we need to maintain and repair the parts of this engine. In the next chapter, I will show you how to do this in practice through a protocol that adjusts what you eat and how you live in order to give your metabolism this definitive reset. To reset your abdominal metabolism after 50, we need to attack the problem on 3 fronts: what you eat, when you eat, and how you rest. The first step in our protocol is adjusting protein density. Remember when we talked about muscle loss? To prevent your engine from shrinking, you need protein at every meal. Eggs, meats, fish, or high-quality plant proteins should be the foundation of your plate. Protein has the highest thermic effect of all foods, which means your body spends more energy digesting it, and as a bonus, it keeps you full for much longer, eliminating that urge to snack on sweets in the afternoon. The second step is what I call the metabolic rest window. If insulin is a lock on your belly fat, we need time for it to fall. Try implementing a natural fast of 12 to 14 hours, starting with an earlier dinner. If you eat dinner at 7 p.m. and have breakfast at 8 a.m., you've already given your body 13 hours to clear excess sugar and begin drawing energy from visceral fat. During the day, avoid snacking. Eat complete, nourishing meals. Remember, every snack is an insulin key locking your fat burning again. The third pillar, and perhaps the most neglected after 50, is restorative sleep. In 15 years of clinical practice, I've seen many patients who dieted and exercised but still couldn't lose belly fat because they slept poorly. A single bad night of sleep raises cortisol levels early in the morning. And what does cortisol do? It tells the body to store fat in the belly and break down muscle to produce quick energy. In addition, lack of sleep disrupts ghrelin and leptin, the hormones of hunger and satiety. People who sleep poorly wake up with a brain craving sugar and bread. Sleeping 7 to 8 hours per night is literally a treatment for reducing abdominal fat. Finally, do not ignore the power of stress management. Simple practices like deep breathing or a light walk outdoors help lower the alert signal in your nervous system. When you signal to your brain that you are not in danger, it stops holding on to that emergency reserve around your waist. This protocol is not about starving yourself. It's about giving your body the security it needs to release this fat. When you prioritize protein, respect eating windows, and care for your sleep, you are not simply following a diet. You are changing your hormonal signature. That is when the number on the scale finally starts to move and your waistline begins to return. We have reached the end of this journey, and my main message to you is this. Your age is not a decree that you must live with discomfort or poor health. In 15 years of medicine, I have learned that the human body is incredibly grateful. When you stop attacking it with restrictive diets and start nourishing it with strategy, it responds. Abdominal fat after 50 is not a lost battle. It is simply a signal that your system needed a new calibration. Now you have the map. You know that you must tame insulin, protect your muscles, and reduce inflammation through sleep and stress control. Maturity should be your best phase in life, the time when you have the wisdom to take care of your biological machine with the respect it deserves. I am Dr. Harrison Blake. If this video gave you the clarity you needed to believe in your metabolism again, share it with that friend who is also fighting this battle. Leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and comment below. I take control. See you at the next level of health.